Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Hello, friends. Today I have Cara and James Kerouac. They are best-selling authors, off-grid nomads, and creators of a podcast that blends raw storytelling with spiritual awakening, one of my favorite topics. Kerouacs Cruising, they share conversations and experiences that move beyond surface-level RV life content. They talk about what it means to truly live, how nature teaches presence, how trauma shapes identity, and how healing can happen in a desert wind, a hard conversation, or a quiet moment with your dog. Hello, friends. How are you today?
We're doing great. How are you?
Thanks for having us on.
I'm very excited to meet you. I have had so much fun looking over your content the last couple months leading up to this interview. And I honestly think that you guys, even though there are obviously hardships with any off-grid type living, especially RV living, you're living a very big fantasy that a lot of us in just day-to-day life really dream about.
It's our fantasy too. I mean, I think we have to like pinch each other to like remind ourselves that, you know, this is our real life and this was something we've been dreaming of for a long time.
It has been a crazy. So before we started traveling, I dreamed of living off grid. And it's amazing how things come together when you put it out there to the universe, I guess we'd say. And we were living in Tucson, and really, I don't even know what you would call us.
Just living the grind.
Living the grind, working 50 hours a week.
And then partying in between.
And drinking too much and partying in between, you know, watching football every Sunday at Buffalo Wild Wing, just crazy stuff. But I always wanted to move off grid, and I couldn't find a way out of Tucson, and I knew I needed to leave. And an old supervisor of mine called me up and said,
out of
the blue, are you still looking to move up north to northern Arizona? I have a restaurant that I'm going to open up there that I need a general manager. And I said, I am absolutely ready to go. And that started the journey. I didn't even fulfill my commitment to the restaurant. I had a 3-year contract and only worked 2 years because we bought our property and it just didn't make sense. I was traveling an hour to work and it didn't make sense to continue managing restaurants.
We have that in common. Not that I was a GM, but I was a service manager for several years, and as rewarding as it can be, as fun as it is to meet everybody, it is extremely soul crushing at times. So asking me what it was, I said it's like being the lost luggage clerk at an airport some days.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, as soon as you go up and talk to somebody, you feel like you're in trouble because you're representing the brand and the company and you have to fix it right then. It's the scariest improv I've ever had to do in my whole life. So I don't blame you for bailing after 2 years, especially when you're in the midst of finally claiming your off-grid living dream. What was it like building that?
It was, I tell you what, like it was his dream, and it was like, well, if you want to go on this ride with me, that was pretty much, it was like an ultimatum kind. I don't want to say ultimatum because that sounds more aggressive. You know, when we decided that we were going to commit to life together, he told me he wanted to move off grid, and then we kind of hashed out where. And northern Arizona was it, but we had no plan. Like he said, we had no idea how we were going to get there, and then we had that random boss call or past boss, and it was hard for me at first because I was very much like got my hair done, nails done, you know, prime makeup. Like I was really into pinup. Like I was like on point every day with my appearance and, you know, worked in an office. I was in real estate and, you know, dressed up every day. And moving off grid was like, holy crap. Like what a way to like just dive in and have to look at yourself. We were working opposite hours for a while, And so I was alone by myself in the middle of the woods. We had 40 acres. We had no electricity, intermittent internet or cell phone service, and nothing but the stars and sunsets and the dogs for entertainment, really. And it was, I definitely went through a dark night of the soul. It was really tough for me. I struggled with it heavily. And then I started to fall in love with those things that were all I had, with the stars at night. And they began anchoring me, the sunsets. I look forward to them every night. Having that peace and quiet, I started to rely on, and learning how to be self-sufficient. You know, you start to build pride in that. Like, I'm taking care of myself. Nobody else needs to take care of me. I pay attention where my water is coming from. You know, when you move off grid, in a lot of cases, when you're starting, there's so many things that we take for granted when you live connected. Like when you turn that faucet on, where does the water come from? How much of it are you using? How much electricity are you using? How are you getting more electricity? Your propane gas, things like that. And so I started being more conscientious of those items, and then being proud of myself for supplying them for myself, essentially. And then disconnected from having a restaurant down the street. I have to cook everything. Or I'm driving an hour to a fast food restaurant to grab a bite to eat. So all those little things started really creating a beautiful foundation for what we do now. But yeah, we did 1 year, or not even a full year, in our camper trailer before we talked about it a little bit before we started getting into the call, before we were like, nope, we need something more normal. And so we had built our home, which again was tough because males and females, we have a very different way of communicating with each other, right? And he's very logically minded, and I'm very emotional. And when we're building things, you know, he would say something to the effect of, put that there, literally. Can you do me a favor and put that over there? And I'd be like, put what over where? I don't know what we're doing here. And you're like, we need to measure this board. And I'm like, you know, and he thinks I see the picture that he has in his brain, because to him, it's so logical and it's so normal and it goes with the flow. And so with us learning how to communicate with each other, I feel like that was the biggest lesson we learned during that time, trying to build our house and build our homestead. Because we, for the most part, with the exception of having somebody dig the septic hole for us, we built a shell of a building, or bought a shell of a building, and then built a home on the inside. It had no plumbing, no electric, no drywall, none of that. So it was
no insulation.
No insulation.
She makes it sound like it was roses and butterflies.
It wasn't.
It was. It actually built the foundation for what we're doing now, but it was not fun. And our relationship was based on work, sharing bills, and really partying. And when we put that life aside, it really changed us to live off grid.
It was an identity crisis for both of us, I think, and our relationship.
It really, I wasn't sure if we would even make it as a relationship, because she would get so frustrated in something that I was just, we're going to put this board here, like she said. But to me, it just made simple sense what we were doing. And we argued terribly through probably the first year and a half of building our dream, really.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. But now when we do things together, I have learned to listen and understand where she's coming from. And she actually has learned how to do many things with construction.
Well, and I think what it did is brought out the rawness. It showed us where our trauma spots are, where our triggers are, and what we need to work on. And I didn't see it because I didn't have that mindset back then. But looking back on it now, and when we co-authored the book Together We Rise, when we wrote our chapter, it really brought to light a lot of the things that where our trauma triggers were, essentially, and the things we needed to grow through. Like he said, I used to freak out when he told me to do something and I didn't know how to do it because I felt like I was a failure. So why do I feel like I'm a failure? And then digging into those things, why am I feeling triggered emotionally in such an extreme way? So it really, again, created the foundation for the life we're living today to be able to do it the way that we're doing it.
And then go ahead.
My uncle told me, if you ever want to test your relationship, build a house together.
It definitely tests your relationship.
Yeah, but I like that you guys have come out on the other side and you've been able to understand that you guys weren't like picking on each other. This isn't like the story of an abusive relationship or anything. It's two people that are really working through almost their shadow sides that they really didn't know until they came together, which I think hopefully a lot of people are in, and we're not dealing with a bunch of karmic relationships around us, but the dreams that you're building together, getting out of the grind, the identity crisis that you're both going through. I mean, that's just so much going on.
I think it's so many people avoid that stuff, right? Because they're afraid of it. They don't want to go through those hard things. And that's what we did for a long time. We numbed to avoid that pain. We never had to deal with it before. We were together for 8 years before we had moved off grid, and we had never had any of these problems. And once we stopped
we
drinking,
never really had real conversations is
true.
really what it was.
You're exactly right.
I mean, we would, I mean, I hate to say it, but we literally would drink into numbness and then we coexisted.
Yeah.
It really was that. And it's crazy. It's crazy.
It is.
Well, especially when you get into the topic of like spiritual awakenings, which from your show and from your experiences, I know you're like me. If you see anybody that's had like a revolution in their identity or their spirit like that, you want to dig in. You're like always curious of like, well, who were you before this? Because the person sitting in front of you was not that person either. And luckily drinking's never really been my thing. I really suck at it. I'm 2 drinks in a Waffle House. Literally. Okay. So that's not my thing, but I know plenty of people that drink to numb things. They have so many comforts, especially like what you said, not knowing who cares how much electricity I use. I pay the bill, water, all of that. But then you guys were out on a property where, I mean, if you don't do it, you're really going to go without, and you're going to be extremely uncomfortable. And even in the comforts that you did provide yourself, it weren't the comforts that you were used to having in the 8 years where you were just drinking and had all of the homely things, the football, food whenever you wanted, all of that. So not only did you guys, I mean, my goodness, talk about uncomfortable. The more that the story unravels, I'm like, you guys really went through some shit together and came out kind of smelling like roses on the other side, or at least nature on the other side.
Definitely nature.
Yeah, well, like as you're talking, I picture me trying to like do the things that you're doing, and like I'm Cara, James is my husband, and I think we would have killed each other because there's so many comforts that I do enjoy that I wouldn't want to be able to get rid of. But my husband is really inspired by your guys' story. He's like, oh, they live off grid. Tell me about it. Get like a blueprint. And I was like, I love you so much, but I will never live off grid with you. He just wants to be like a woodsman and go hack shit up and build shit all the time. And I think that's beautiful. There's a backyard, there's a shed. I'll be in here making dinner in my kitchen. But to continuously like hear these things and picture who you were before, not only with the drinking, because we know what alcohol does to our bodies and the suppressant that it actually is, but how were you able to move away? Like, did all of the off-grid work move you away from the alcohol out of necessity, out of productivity? Or when did you both realize that this was hindering your relationship, your connectivity, and the dreams that you were building?
I would say that's been really recent, actually, because we were still drinking pretty heavily up until a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
And I wouldn't say to the same extent. Yeah, the pandemic got really bad.
The pandemic changed us. And we were working inside the Grand Canyon National Park because that was really close to our property. And they laid us off, obviously. And that started us really in a spiritual direction, I guess you would call it.
No, that was after that, right?
At 2022?
2022, yeah. I'm trying to think of what was the trigger. So we were both conspiracy theorists. So, I mean, the pandemic, I think, ramped that up for a lot of us who identify with that. Mm-hmm. And I had come across a video that was talking about how the CIA had used remote viewing as a tactic during the Cold War, and showing the different scientific evidence of remote viewing and how it was real. And I was like, oh my God, like that's crazy. And if the the government's behind it and they're investing money behind it, and presidents have made decisions based off of what remote viewers have witnessed, there's something to this. And I was an atheist up until this point. Like, I believed it literally just what you see and what you interact within your daily life is what is real. And I mean, you were pretty close to that. And if there was something above, it was aliens that were manipulating everything, right? I mean,
I grew up very Catholic as a child, but as soon as my parents allowed me not to go to church, I stopped going. So it was, what brought us to the first book we read?
So that's where I was kind of going towards. So we got into that and nerded out on that. And that, basically it was selling a program to start doing meditations to learn how to remote view. And from there, it started talking about the science of quantum physics. And I just dove headfirst into that rabbit hole. And I spent a whole day researching quantum physics, just totally mind blown. Like, this is how our world works. And we just don't realize it because we're all collectively just accepting that this is how things are. So it does work that way. And so I just went off on a tangent on it, and I had to go to a shift. I was a tour guide at the Grand Canyon at the time. I had to go to a shift at work, and I didn't want to go. I just wanted to keep digging into quantum physics. So I was super poopy faced about having to go to work and all grumpy about it, but, put on my mask and pretend to be happy and joyful and go through the tour. And I really hit it off with the guests that I had. And at the end, on the way back, they were asking me personal questions about my life and my experience and living off grid and things like that. And they started there's some conspiracies around the Grand Canyon. So we kind of went down the conspiracy theory wormhole. And I was like, yeah, but if you consider quantum physics, and they were like, oh. And so then we went there, and she was like, oh, have you read the book E Squared? And I was like, no, tell me about it. And so she had mentioned, or she had told me that it was a book that was offering quantum science experiments that you can do on your own for free. And 9 different experiments that prove that you create your own reality. And so we got the book right away and started doing them. And it's been c'est la vie.
Since then. We manifested our life.
Yeah.
And
we've seen how we've manifested up until this point, positive and negative.
But didn't realize it. Because I set the intention that I wanted to move out of Tucson pretty heavy in my mind. And
living off grid, all of it.
Yeah. And I had worked in the fast food industry for over 20 years, and really for the same company, Yum Brands. And an old supervisor calls me and said, are you still, it was just amazing. When I look back on it now, all the things that happened up until then, we had no idea about manifesting or anything. I just knew in my mind's eye that I needed to get out of Tucson because it was slowly killing me, basically. And I knew I needed to change my life, but not knowing that some of the things that took place, even finding our property,
much synchronicity.
So much, yeah, it's just so crazy. And then we read E Squared. We did all those experiments, and it was crazy that they worked. And then it's like you can manifest pretty much anything you want if you really focus on it. And you have to focus on it. And it might not come in a day or 2 days or 5 days, but it does really. We dreamed about a camper 2 years ago.
2.5 years.
And I had a utility trailer we were pulling around, but we dreamed about a camper, and now we have a camper. It's just crazy the way it works. So after we read E Squared, I had never really read since I've been a kid, only about work. I never was really reading for enjoyment or even to gain any more knowledge. I only read when I was forced to read through work. And I was an area supervisor, whatever. So I read a lot, but nothing to learn. Just stupid crap, really, about Yum Brands. And then we read E Squared. And then after that, we read
Limitless by Jim Quick.
Limitless by Jim Quick, that just teaches you about learning is a forever process, and that reading is a really good tool. And then we read Think and Grow Rich from William Hill. And then from there, who was it?
William Hill is Where You Gamble on Horses.
What is it?
It's Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill.
I couldn't think of the name.
I don't know if that's right, but I don't know what it is. But now that you say Napoleon Hill, that's correct as well.
It was Napoleon Hill. So from there, it's just been crazy, really.
Mm-hmm.
Napoleon Hill has a whole community that I actually had someone tap me in not too long ago. I think I do have that book. Somebody sent it to me online. It is thick with manifestation and quantum entanglement.
But it won't say it. It just teaches you how to use it. Yeah.
And I know it's because they want to give it to like business people and you have to like appeal to the left brain and most people like that. But it was that. And then there's also the power of something. I can't think of what it is now. And I can't walk
Abraham Hicks books, The Astonishing Power of Emotions.
I haven't read her books, but I've listened to a lot of the audio, either like through Spotify or YouTube. I just find her voice so soothing. It's kind of like a nice nanny computer. I don't really know how to say it. I've never heard a voice like that in my life. A lot of it makes sense. I think when I see the mainstream version of manifestation, because you have tons of manifestation coaches, you have a lot of people out there being like, oh, I manifested this and I manifested this. I still think there's this hoopla level of it and there's a real level where the hoopla is like, I'm going to sit down and meditate and I'm going to hold a vision in my head. But then when I go out in real life, I'm just going to do whatever I want until it shows up on my doorstep. Versus manifestation actually takes action. It takes discipline and clearing out all the distractions that are not on your path ahead. And that's obviously easier said than done. But that is one of the hardest things I have had to do to get the things that I want in my life and still pursue the goals ahead is I'm like, what's distracting me right now? Where am I at? And I think that that's the healthy version of manifestation that people maybe can't market as well because it doesn't seem as mystical or as magical. But quantum physics is magic. It's just scientific magic, in my opinion. And I love that everybody that I have talked to that has had some type of awakening and dark night, my goodness, we should scroll back to that really quick because those freaking hurt. We always end up in the rabbit hole of quantum mechanics or quantum physics. And that to me blew away a limiting belief because those are two things that you couldn't have paid me to look into in high school or even a short stint in college. Like when you say quantum anything, I was like, well, I'm clearly not smart enough for that. So then I even identified a limiting belief that like I had to have a certain IQ to be able to even look at these topics. So even in the last 6 years, reading the books that I have, coming across all the resources I have, I'm like, my younger self has to just be ecstatic for me right now that I have just pushed that shit away from me and been like, I can read whatever I want. Maybe some things will take me a little bit longer because some books I pick up are quite dense. And I have things that they say. But when I was reading that article, I was going to bring up those two books that you guys reference because, one, any book that somebody references that changed their life, I'm obviously going to check it out. I'm such a huge book nerd, but I just go by references on anybody. And I actually checked them out before the show. And I put E2 or E squared in my cart. And then Limitless will be in my cart next week. Because if I put it in my cart, I will buy them together. And sometimes, usually every week, a book ends up in the mailbox. And my husband is like, you have another book? So, that's my guilty pleasure to look through all of that. But back to the Napoleon Hill stuff. It is quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and manifestation bottled up in a very nice business term for people in a suit to pretend like they don't know they're doing woo-woo stuff.
Exactly. And
awesome.
he wrote it in the 1930s at the end of the Great Depression, and it was to try to help get America back on their feet. And he had to because nobody else, you're talking a very strong Christian society back there that if you started talking about vibration and law of attraction and energy, that's witchcraft. You can't be talking about that. So he had to, in order to get this out to the people, it wouldn't have touched hardly anybody. It really was genius. He did it in a really beautiful way and packaged it up really nicely. But that we use that system as, the blueprint for how we got ourselves to where we are right now, traveling in a camper around the country.
And we haven't figured it all out.
No.
We're still just gathering information, continuing reading and talking to people like you and even all the authors that were in the book, and still changing our mindset and trying to get rid of those limiting beliefs that we grew up with, that unfortunately our grandparents and parents just instilled in us.
And society.
And it's hard to get away from it still. I find myself in the monkey brain all the time and not being able to clearly focus on really what I want. So it's still, I think, right? We're still trying to figure it all out.
But I think that's part of the human experience. I think anybody who claims to have it all figured out, they're lying to you, unfortunately, because that's part of being in this human suit, is learning as we go and figuring it out as we go. And I don't think we ever get over all of our issues, because as we get over issues, we're creating more issues in the process. You know, it's a never ending cycle. I mean, every day you have interactions with people where you're like, should I have said that? Should I have done that? Did I, push limiting beliefs on somebody else accidentally, because we're all products of our programming, whether we want to be or not.
Well, I'm laughing now because I have my first grandson, and he turned 1 July 1st. And sometimes when I'm playing with him, Cara's like, why are you trying to stick that limiting belief on him? And I'm doing it not even consciously knowing. And she's like, you just gave him limiting beliefs. And I'm like, come on, he's only 12, 13, 14 months or whatever it is. It's funny, but it changes your life, and it changes the interaction that I have with them, because instead of saying no, I'm trying to say, is that the best choice? Mm-hmm. So it does change you. It changes you. And I we know we're not going to change my son and his wife, but sometimes I'm like, I wish they would engage in some of the things that we've been learning to really better raise your child.
But to take it onto a deeper level, because we're immersing ourselves into it, when you consider the ripple effect or entanglement or any of those things,
we know we're affecting them.
Yeah, we're going to, whether they realize it or not, they're going to be affected in a positive way.
I was going to say, the more that the child grows up, they'll be able to identify with the group that kind of fits them better. Mm-hmm. It's like you have done and are still doing your work to break your generational trauma that you've identified, and as a grandparent passed it along. But that doesn't mean that your son or his wife, with all respect, has found that programming in themselves or is something that they even want to deal with. And that's probably the hardest part about being on a journey together with you guys, having such compatibility in your awakenings and working on your stuff together, is most people are doing this shit just raw dogging it by themselves. They're not really, they don't have people to talk to about this stuff in their everyday life. They go out and find podcasts like yours or mine or Mystical Mermaid Lounge or Past Life Cafes. Those are two of my friends' podcasts that I am obsessed with, the guests that they bring on as well. And it inspires you to find other authors, to find different modalities, to identify limiting beliefs, or even like, okay, yeah, I have that limiting belief figured out, but am I still projecting it on other people to like make myself feel better that I'm secretly working on it? Because I've had that shit come up too. And I've had moments where I've really had to check myself. But I think the loneliest part about waking up is realizing it really is your internal journey with your path, whatever you're doing, whether you're sharing it with people. And when you want to go out and be like, I found something. I always compare it to like, I quit smoking cigarettes, but everyone around me keeps smoking cigarettes. So I'm like, guys, I don't smell bad anymore. I can breathe deeply in my chest. I can run a mile. You have to quit smoking. And they're just like,
I felt the same way when we got healthy and we
started eating good food. We tried to push it on everybody.
All over everybody. Like, come on, start eating whole foods, start cooking for yourself. You guys, you're going to feel so much better. Come on. And you want to scream it from the rooftops, because especially the people that you love, you want them to feel as good as you feel. And I feel like you said, the smoking, the health, the spiritualness, it's the same thing.
It's crazy.
And it is a very internal journey. And again, you consider the quantum effect. If you really keep doing the deep work, And I catch myself all the time where I will say, oh, so-and-so should have done this way. And I'm like, I should have done that way in this situation for myself. Like you're saying, I project onto other people what I think they need to do. And then if I turn around and look at the mirror, I'm like, oh, I'm saying what they need to do in this situation. And it's what I should be doing in that situation for myself. And that's, I think one of the biggest steps somebody can take who's like, I don't even know how to get started. Start paying attention to the thoughts you think and the words you say about what other people should be doing, what your opinions are about that, because it is probably exactly what you need to be hearing about yourself.
Also, if you just want a simple exercise, just go sit somewhere and people watch and see what thoughts you have.
Yes.
Are you critiquing people's outfits? Are you critiquing people's parenting styles at a park? Are you looking at what items somebody has in their grocery cart? I would never buy those. Those are poison. Like stuff like that. It's so easy how we judge people obsessively like that. But I remember at first observing it in other people. I was in a car with some friends and we had to stop at this crosswalk. And this woman was wearing a very revealing outfit. And in today's society, she wouldn't be able to wear that outfit with how big she was at the time. Let's just say that. Yeah. And the person in the car said, well, God love her confidence for wearing that, but she'd never catch me dead in that. And I just remember catching all of that like I was like an out-of-body experience almost, where I was like, that somehow that was really derogatory, where she was basically being like, how on earth did you leave the house not looking in the mirror? How could you possibly come out into society and look like that? Yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I wonder what in her mind gives her the right to feel better about saying that about somebody. And then I was like, I bet I do this too. So then I did like a little experiment on myself where I just went and I people watched and I was like, oh my God, I'm an asshole in my head. I don't say these things to people because I actually think I'm a really nice person, but it turns out my inner monologue is a shady bitch. Okay. That is something that I desperately had to work on because I was like, where's this judgment coming from all the time? I studied it for years. And just recently, within the last 6 months, I found something from somebody that I can't even credit right now. But they said, if you ever come up on either like wanting to judge somebody or looking at somebody situation and basically like judging, you say in your brain before the judgment comes out or the thought, or you cut the thought off and you say, same spark, different lesson, because apparently it bypasses the judge and jury in your brain that's set up like a rapid fire to say like, you know better, or, you shouldn't be doing that. It bypasses that in your brain and it switches you into that like unconditional path where it's like, who am I to say what you're doing here on your journey? I barely know what the hell I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out. So just, recently my daughter started gymnastics. So I'm in a room full of a lot of kids and a lot of adults. And there's just a lot of blank faces everywhere. Like, I don't think any of us are happy to be there, but we're happy to support our children is kind of what it's like. So you can just feel the room full of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I found myself walking in because I was extremely anxious going. And I remembered like the first day when I started just kind of being judgy, looking around at people because my asshole kicks in when I get anxious. And I was like, oh God, I'm doing it again. I was like, same spark, different lesson, same spark, different lesson. And I was like, just saying it over and over like a mantra, just so I could be like, you have no reason to judge all these people. And then like self-identifying with myself, I'm like, I'm just anxious because I'm out around a bunch of strangers and I'm pretending like I'm somewhat of a soccer mom, but I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I just recently read a book. It's called The Untethered Soul. And it's about, really, in my opinion, it's about how your subconscious plays tricks on you, right? Basically. Yeah. And it really lies to you over and over and over and over again, and how to get away from that. And it's so true. It's so true. And it's just like you say, I love people watching, for one thing, I'll say that. But it's the worst thing because you judge everybody that goes by. You judge the way they walk. You do. Subconsciously, you're like, what's that guy walking like that for? Or why they have that weird hat on or something? So I definitely have found that and really trying to change it. And one of the things, I grew up with brothers and whatever. We're just tough guys, I guess you'd say. And I'm trying to live more love over fear and love over anger. When I used to, the first response I had in conflict was, all right, let's fucking duke it out.
Sounds very modern day masculine, out of balance. Yeah. Yeah, I know men like that.
And I've been really trying to change my focus. And I had a friend that recently reached out to me, and he's struggling.
You guys grew up together.
But we grew up together, and he's struggling with life. And, his kids, our kids are the same age, 34 and 35. And he's like, my kids don't see me anymore. I'm kind of lonely. I need to get out and do a walkabout. I was like, you do? And you got to change your perspective. I told him the book, The Untethered Soul, but I was like, the biggest thing that I'm learning in life is love over and anger all day long.
I think that's a really big message that a lot of people come to in any sort of self-work, inner work transformation. And I always point it back to the artist. I've said this in like 10 episodes. So if you continuously listen to it, you're like, wow, Cheyenne, you say the same thing. But the artists have always been telling us in music.
They have.
About love, when it's been painted in love, when the Beatles were like, all you need is love. No shit. That makes so much sense. But
it's amazing how different music is when you have this different perspective. You're like, oh my God, I've heard this song my whole life.
And never understood it.
I never understood this message.
Yes. I went back to so many like artists that I felt like were breadcrumbing me. Like they're really messengers, right? They're frequency carriers in my opinion, but they're messengers. And after I woke up, I went back and I was like, son of a bitch, Maynard just really gets it. Chino's really speaking to my soul, which that's Deftones and Tool, if you guys don't know who I'm talking about. But yeah, love is a really big thing. I went down the rabbit hole of the difference between like unconditional love and conditional love, because when we're speaking about love, people still need to know the difference. Have you guys ever read Conversations with God?
No. We're going to write it down now.
Okay. Well, there's 3 books and talk about a freaking rabbit hole. So basically, I'll give you the gist of it so I can get to the part that I want to get to. Is this guy's having like a really shitty life, like to the point that he's basically homeless at one part, and he, bows down and does this thing where he's kind of mad at God, and then he starts like channeling a conversation between him and God. And when he realizes he's talking to God, he starts asking all of these amazing questions in this conversational format for 3 books. And there's 2 things that stuck out mostly to me from reading it. And one where he was like, well, if you're God, like, why aren't you stopping all the suffering? Why aren't you starting this? And it goes into, you come from love. You know that you come from love. You forget when you're incarnated here. So if I incarnated you in a world with just love, you would never know what love is because you don't have the contrast. So now being taken out of the love, experiencing other things, you understand what love is and what type of love is. So if you're asking me what your purpose is to come down here and experience all the emotions, all the contrast, and all the different types of love there is. And that was one of it's not the first time that I'd heard that, but it was written out really well in the book, which is why I recommend it to a lot of people, because so many people struggle with that. Well, why is all this negativity in the world? And it's like, it's giving you contrast. It's giving you perspective. Like if you're a canvas, right, and you just have like one dot of paint, that's not really a canvas, but splash that baby all over. You've got that like gradients everywhere, and you can see the highs and the lows of the hues. And that's the human experience just on a canvas. So yes, read that book, but back into this love thing that you're talking about, especially from a man. I hate to say it like that, but the feminines are really pulling ahead in the unconditional love game from what I'm reading on the internet. And from a guy that obviously fills the role of the football, the drinking, the I'm not going to talk about my emotions. How has not only this literature, care, support, but then your own internal monologue really help you turn this around to feel safe enough to connect with that, I would say the feminine attribute inside of you and really push those together in a uniting force?
It's been really difficult it's been difficult to have feelings, really, because I mean, Cara can contest it. I don't really have too many feelings that are emotions, I say, that I show emotion. And it's been really hard for me. Like when I grew up, we weren't allowed to cry. You know, even if we were getting hit, my father would be like, you want something to cry about? Then I'm really going to hit you more, basically. And so it's been really difficult. And I don't even know how to explain it, really, how I've come through. I guess it's really, I really want to change. I really want to feel emotions. So I've been really trying to change it. And the only experience that I can say recently that I have that I've actually felt emotions and sadness is we just had to put down our dog, Jules, that we've had for our whole relationship. We got her when she was, this big. And it was really difficult. And we stayed in the room and patted her until, they gave her the least lethal dose. And that was probably the first time I cried in a long time. Yeah. And probably since Cara's known me.
I remember you crying another time, but I can't remember the specific.
So it's been really difficult for me to show emotions and do those things. I just didn't grow up with those things. I didn't grow up with a lot of love in my family. It was hard love.
The grandbaby was a big one for you. And the grandbaby brings a lot of emotion out.
So the grandbaby, after the grandbaby was born, because I've been on this path since before he was born, he brings, I can feel my heart change just being around him. And he gets energy flowing through my body that I've never felt before. So it's been a whirlwind, really, in the last few years. So I don't know how to really explain it and put it in the words, but my emotions have shown more than they ever have shown, I think.
Yeah.
What do you
You've done a wonderful job explaining that, by the way. I felt you on all of that.
I think from the partner perspective, I think the biggest thing is, and it's been hard for me because we're both, we both grew up in narcissistic, traumatic homes. And so we've had a lot of relearning of how to interact with one another in a positive, uplifting way. And so I think that one of the biggest things as being that empowered feminine is to actually hold space. Like we were just talking about judgment, like sometimes I'll think to myself, James needs to do X, Y, Z. And then it's like, look in the mirror, like, no, that's what I need to do. And just keep my mouth shut and just be there for him. And because I know that it's hard for him to express his emotions, I will ask him, pointed questions or direct questions to give him the opportunity to take space if he wants to, like, let's have this conversation. If he doesn't, at least hopefully it gets his brain turning, and he's able to work through it himself. And then in the moments that he is, again, because we're working through our own trauma. So when my husband starts to retreat, I'm like, what's wrong? What did I do? Is he mad at me? What's going on? My monkey brain starts to spiral, and it's like, no, breathe, be confident in yourself. Even if something is wrong, it is really about being centered within yourself. And once you're confident in yourself and you love yourself and you're okay within yourself, you're offering him that space to process what he needs to process. One of the things I've learned in my journey is that me being overly needy, I'm codependent. So me being overly needy on him takes from him. How much am I asking him to satisfy my emotional vulnerabilities? I don't feel like I am doing a good job unless he's constantly showering me with love and appreciation and admiration. And so me stepping back and realizing that's one of my toxicities, that's one of my problems, allows him to have the space to focus on himself and what he needs to go through so that he can process his emotions his way, instead of me being like, wait, you're being distant. What's wrong? I give him the space. Like, is everything okay? Okay, you didn't give me anything for us to go back and forth, so I'll just continue to give you your space until you're ready. And then the next day he gives me my butt a grab and I get a kiss and everything's good again. Whatever it is.
I've also read something today that really lifted a lot of like past things that have happened to me, and even today, how you get around someone and you're like, are they mad at me? I wonder if they're mad at me. How do I figure out if they're mad at me without asking if they're mad at me? And then this quote basically was like, if someone's mad at you, it's not your responsibility to figure out if they're mad at you or upset with you in any way, shape, or form. It's up to them to speak it to you. You have nothing to do with that. So until someone confronts you with it, you don't have to pay any mind to it. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Why haven't I thought about that my whole life? I have spent so many countless times just grueling over the fact that I might have done something that upset somebody, and I just have to figure it out and then present it to them. Like, I know you're mad at me. I think I figured it out. And I'm like, what a lot of wasted mental space to do when I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not my problem, until they bring it up to me. And then we can have like a conscious conversation about it.
Isn't it so crazy that we waste our time with those things? And a lot of the times they have something totally else on their mind. They weren't even focused on you. Has nothing to do with you. But I'm like, oh, are they mad at me? They're acting weird today.
Go back and forth with our daughter-in-law and his son all the time. We're like, oh, they're acting weird today. Are they mad at us? What could we have done? And it's nothing to do with us 90% of the time.
And they're like, hey, you want to go rock climbing? We're like, oh, we thought you were mad at us. And it's like, nothing. It's just, you waste so much time. That's that unconscious brain tricking you again.
I know we have the mutual acquaintance, Sylvie Stewart.
Yes.
I've been working a lot with her in EFT and processing my trauma and a lot of my past stuff. And one of the things she said recently is, as an empath, when you feel other people's emotions, because you were raised in that kind of environment where you had to try to keep the peace or anticipate others' needs to keep safety in your home, when you feel someone else's emotions, when you feel what kind of I just lost the word I'm trying to say, but when you feel the uncomfortableness, when you feel their anger, their negativity, whatever they've got going on, you own it. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I've really had to wrap my brain around, because I feel their emotions. I'm trying to figure out what's going on and how I can make it better. But like you said, they're an adult. They didn't bring anything to my attention. It isn't my responsibility. And by me, even if I don't think it has something to do with me, but by me trying to accommodate or fix whatever they have going on, almost as kind of saying that they can't handle themselves in their life situation, like it's a negative towards them. And so it's really been a life identity kind of rebuilding.
I identify with that heavily. I also think it's a weird form of self-abandonment that you do growing up empathetic or empath. I think we grow up empathetic and then we later find out that we're empathic. And I still think there's a greater part of society that doesn't believe that we can absorb emotions from other people unless you go into the whole auric field thing where you realize they're all 8 feet out and you can switch things out all the time.
And change the language on that. That's the bioelectromagnetic field. Science has proven that it exists. We can call it an aura if you want in the spiritual world, or it's a bioelectromagnetic field. And science has proven that our bodies interact with that. Those subtle energies are real, scientifically measured. They fluctuate, their vibrations and their readings based on people's moods, what they're thinking about, what they're watching, what they're being
we have a friend that always says, "You're not coming in my bubble."
I love that.
Or some of us are welcomed into the bubble.
Yeah, but it's scientifically
proven. That's the truth of it all.
Yeah. I wish that people would get on board. And just to drop another book, I don't know if you know it, but I know it, or I have it and I live by it, but it's The Subtle Energy Body. I think it's The Subtle Body by Cindy Dale, and it's an encyclopedia of your human anatomy and something else. I'm going to butcher the title, but all you got to do is type in The Subtle Body by Cindy Dale.
I have it on my Kindle. I haven't dug into it yet, but I have it on my Kindle.
You need a physical copy to highlight.
Got it.
Touch. It is it's the best thing. Like, I'll even do like reads on TikTok about it just so I can be like, people, listen, like you need to take ownership of what's inside of you, because you're spewing it all over everybody and then pretending like you really didn't do shit, which consciously maybe you didn't, but the unconscious really rules our life a lot. So I absolutely love that you brought that up, because yes, I'm the same way with that. Like, I used to be like, oh God, they're in pain. Well, I'm going to go fix them. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a martyr and I don't need to abandon myself. And it's really hard to pull away from that, because you think it's coming from this like love and unconditional aspect, but it's still operating from a trauma response in a way.
Exactly.
And I definitely haven't healed it completely, but I do remember being younger trying to explain to my mom why I was so mad. And I was like, I feel like I'm a trash can for all of your emotions. And I walk into a room with you and all your shit gets dumped into me, and then you leave and now I'm pissed. And I don't have the science behind it to understand it. I'm just a child. I just knew that I was picking up other people's stuff and then I was blaming them for giving it to me with no physical proof that it was happening. So I just get freaking nuts all the time. Like, literally a very big B word, to be honest, which I find funny that I'm editing myself now. But through this whole experience you guys have had, you have not only started a podcast, you're best-selling authors, you have a YouTube channel, the website, the blog, just to keep people up. I love how it is raw, authentic. It is not overly polished where it's like, look at us, we live in RV and everything's simple. You're like, we messed up. Let's tell you what we did. And in this article, I want to read a couple highlights that you wrote down, not only on imposter syndrome, and then just kind of have a conversation with you guys about it, because I think you hit the nail on the head for this. And then I want to talk about back to the inner critic a little bit. So in this article that I will link below if anybody would like to read it, they say imposter syndrome is a byproduct of perfectionism and old programming. Performance-based environments condition us to downplay our strengths, doubts, our intuition, and seek validation in all the wrong places. Another definition of imposter syndrome, or an example of what it did to you, is twisting perception, filtering feedback through fear. And then finally, you said to overcome it, you said you were done waiting for permission to share the truth of your life experience. We create because we must, not because we seek applause. I wrote that down and I kind of want to turn it into a poster on my wall, just so when I have a bad day, I can read these words, because these are evidence of true soul work and understanding that these are things that in a way still bind us all as humanity. Not one person on the earth has not felt these emotions, but to have these written out, so I don't even have the word for it. I just fell in love immediately when I read this article and saw the way that you guys have described imposter syndrome, because I've had my own ways about it, but this was just almost like melodic to me. I was like, this is everything I feel. But I feel okay reading these words to identify that my imposter syndrome kicks my ass all the time. And then I'll revert back to, well, why are you doing these projects in the first place? Why do you love? And I'm like, I have to. It's in me. I have to do this. But I also have an inner critic in my mind, which I found out yesterday. I should have named him months ago. So today I named him Stanford. So anytime I have that voice in my head, I'm like, thank you, Stanford, go away. And then I can go back to my life. But with everything you guys have done and are trying to teach people and inspire people, and even the others that you interview on your podcast, tell us more about continuously moving through the imposter syndrome and just the continued work that you're doing on yourselves.
I think the biggest thing, and I'm actually in the process of editing our episode that'll come out Wednesday, where we interviewed a beautiful friend of ours, and she reached out to us. She interviewed us at the beginning of our journey, and she reached out to us wanting to be on our podcast because we inspired her as she's going through her midlife journey to just take more extreme steps than she probably would have otherwise, according to her. And it's talking to people like that and being in this journey in the book and realizing that the people who look like they've got their shit together the most have the biggest shit show going on behind them. They're just working harder to make it look like they've got everything going on right on the outside. And I think so many people are done with seeing the fake show. And when you start digging deeper into knowing these people and knowing their relationships and knowing their struggles and having these deeper, more open conversations, you start to realize that you're not alone. We're all going through the same struggles. And so we use that a lot, and not in a negative way, not like, oh, look at her shit, I'm doing better. Nothing like that. It's more of a, I really admire this person and I love what they're doing. And I know what they have going on behind the scenes because they've been honest with me. And I'm still seeing them go out and do these amazing things, even though they feel like they're an imposter, even though they feel like they have no right to be on the stage that they're standing on. So why shouldn't, and they think I'm great. So why shouldn't I stand on this stage and say what I feel like needs to come out of me? And I mean, you mentioned that we're not polished. We're pretty raw. And we have very conversations like you do when we do our interviews. We really don't we have a few things that maybe we want to try to make sure we touch on. But for the most part, we trust that we're a channel. What needs to come out is going to come out in each and every episode. And the message that people need to hear from us right now is what we want to have come out. If we polish it too much and overthink it and go to ChatGPT and try to create a script and do all this stuff, we're losing the purpose of what we're doing. Now we're just pushing an agenda as opposed to helping people awaken in their own journey, in their own life, and find their own steps through it. And we do have to keep reminding each other of that sometimes. But I think the benefit is having a partner in crime who's doing this growth journey with you. We're able to, on opposite days, you know, when one of us are feeling super imposterish, the other one's like, well, remember this and XYZ, and we're able to lift each other up, which I think has been really beautiful in the process.
And that is what it is. I think having two people that we can collaborate on is so important for us right now, because I'm 54 years old and learned more in the last 2 years than I did the last 30 years. It's crazy to me to put it in words, but I feel so much lighter. I feel so much more loved than I ever have before. So we're trying to move people in that direction. We're trying to move people to understand that you can go after whatever your life dreams are.
It doesn't have to be off grid.
It doesn't have to be off grid. It doesn't have to be traveling in a camper. It's whatever you felt when you were 10 years old that you wanted to do, or 15. And like, I never thought I was going to be a fast food manager for 25 years. That's not what I envisioned when I was 10, 12, 13 years old. Them things happened because society pushed me to do that. Or whatever it was, I felt that I needed to do that.
You needed to put food on the table.
And I needed to put food on the table. And I don't think that I had a bad career. I know I helped many people. And for a long time, it empowered me to help people. You know, I really like that part about being a manager and a trainer and helping people. So it's just on my own terms. I still want to help people. I still want to train people, but it's on my own term. And we just want to push people to know that you don't have to live by the society norms of life. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And one of the things, I read this book, Jack Kerouac book, Dharma Bums, and I tell people that that's how I want to live, as a Dharma bum. And I never knew it my whole life until I read his book. And now I'm like, I am a Dharma bum. I'm going to live my own way. And everybody can live their own way, whatever it is. We don't have it figured out. It's not like we have $1 million in the bank. We figure it out day by day, step by step.
We have no income.
And book by book.
Yeah.
Really.
Absolutely. And one of the things I want to touch on, because we do lean very hard in our journey on each other. But even if you're going through the journey, like you feel like you're on your own, like maybe you're healing, but your partner isn't, or maybe you're learning that maybe your partner is part of the toxicity in your life, that can feel very isolating. One of the things that I've done over time, and it's really showed up in beautiful ways. I mean, people connecting me with people like you, is to put the intention out there to find people who are on the journey with you. Just truly, and that sounds crazy, and you're manifesting it though. You put the intention that you want to connect with people who are like you. You're going to all of a sudden find yourselves showered with like-minded people who are going on their journey, who are going to uplift you and carry you along. It doesn't have to be somebody you know right now, but maybe it is. So some people are very shy about talking about these sort of things, that they're on these inner journeys, because they're not pretty. But once you start opening yourself up to that, you're going to find yourself in an environment of supportive, like-minded people very easily. You'll be amazed by it. You'll look back one day and be like, where did all this magic come from? How do I have all these magical humans in my life?
And one of the things, especially in Together You Rise, there was so many different modalities that there is out there for people to go to. So if you are, and we've talked about it in other podcasts, if you are alone and you don't know how to begin, you can start with any modality
and start connecting the network.
And start connecting. It's about getting out there and doing it, really, and not being scared and losing that imposter syndrome, which I still struggle with all the time.
I don't think it ever goes away.
Yeah, I don't think it ever goes away. It's about, and if you said it perfectly, it's about naming your unconsciousness and telling them to go away. I'm going to name mine now, so thank you for that.
Hey, I got it from Julia Cameron book. It's the Artist's Way tool book. She did the Artist's Way. It's a 12-week program you can do to fill your well back up. But then there's also a toolkit that I found at my public library, and I read that on like page, I don't know, 50 or 60 yesterday. She named her inner critic Nigel.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, Nigel. I was like, what's my like shitty get out of here name? And I'm like, Stanford. We have like Stan on like Golden Girls, Dorothy's ex-husband. So I kind of did it off that, where it's like, oh, get out of here. So yes, name your inner critic. So when it comes in, you can just be like, doors that way, bud. I got work to do. And it also helps you, like, I know neuroplasticity wise, it helps name the voices. So when people have like the spirit guide talk, God talking to them, past loved ones, however it really comes in, when you start like really identifying like, oh, that's Stanford coming in, then right when it comes in, you don't immediately own it, just like you do the feelings of other people as well. And I'm only on day one of that, but I have worked tremendously hard to walk into the room of people and be like, not mine, not mine, not mine, not mine. Okay, I'm just here to have a good time. Which honestly takes a lot of guts, because when you're happy and you're flowing around people that just are really shitty on the inside, they get mad at you that you're happy.
Absolutely.
So you really got to choose your crowds wisely when you do the work. So I love that you said eventually you'll reach out and your crowd will be there, because I've had all the things that we've discussed today. If I'm not still dealing with them, that's like literally been the last 6 years of my life, and why this platform's here now. Because I'm like, there's no freaking way I'm the only one that's going through this shit. And this is intrinsically lonely at points, where it could be like, it could decimate my mental space if I don't reach out and connect with people, and also talk about what they're doing either in their own journeys or helping the collective in a sense. So I love that you guys came on today. Please come back on later and tell us all of your wonderful, whimsical traveling stories, the ups, the downs, and, you know, maybe we could even have a fun episode about conspiracy theories.
Oh, that would be fun.
I read way too many CIA paperworks, and it's really not conspiracy when you get on that website. But yes, you guys.
Isn't it amazing? And real quick, the conspiracies turn out to be actual truths, a lot of them.
Or there's a lot of truth where the
or a lot of truths where they come from.
Yeah. And your conspiracy friends aren't just wrong; they're just early.
Yeah.
When I read that, which
well,
I know
one day or other we're gonna come to Kansas City.
Do it. I would love to. I will show you all my favorite places. Although I will tell you, my favorite place is the public library. But it's a big old place downtown. You have to see it. Most of the places I eat are mom and pop shops that have been around forever. So, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of places you can look up and go, and I would be happy to go. But all like my bookstores, I have to like climb over stacks of books to find the goodies. I'm just an old thrifter, yard sailor, and antique collector. So I really I'm always looking for the off the beaten path. So if you're up for a little tour like that, please come over. I would love to see your guys' whole setup. And I'm sure my husband would absolutely love to talk to you all night about living in an RV and try to convince me that we're doing it as well.
Maybe we'll convince you that it's doable.
I don't know. You haven't met my daughter. She bounces off the wall like an Energizer bunny in this house. I could not imagine her in an RV.
I was going to say, that's why you throw her in the forest.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a convincing argument. Maybe I just throw her out there. Oh,
She
shit.
can hug some trees.
She's a big tree hugger. Yeah,
All
I
right.
asked her to not touch certain things. She's a big nature girl. I definitely am. But like I said before we started recording, it's just the spiders and the wasps that I'm really not a fan of. The bees I'm getting better at because I heard that maybe the bee's not out to hurt you. Maybe it thinks you're a flower. And I can go with that based on the hertz frequency that they vibrate out and hopefully what they think I'm vibrating at. But wasps, I don't get your freaking purpose. Just like a scorpion. So, yeah, I'm trying to be like all loving as much as I can all the time. But then when I meet a wasp, I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, why do you exist? What's your point? Okay, you're mean and you're aggressive for no reason. Anyways, I got off on a tangent on that one, but I'm sure you guys have come across those on your path. And if you can control yourself better than me, good job. Because as triggers go, I think it's probably just a past life wound that I really struggle with in my life today. That's all I got.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I love it.
We hate the wasps, though. We do run into a lot of bees when you're in the forest.
Yes. Yeah, when you're the only thing around with water and food, they find you.
Yeah. Which, just really quick, I saw this picture where, like, especially when the seasons are going down or ramping back up, you get this little bowl, put a bunch of stones in it and put water in it away from the house. And it'll like feed the bees without them like dipping their wings into the water, and it'll keep it from the house. So I'm actually going to do that next year for the bees and the wasps, just so they'll stay away from under my porch. But before season, you can also hang pine cones places. And wasps are territorial. So if they see a pine cone, they think it's a wasp nest and they won't build there anymore.
Oh, that's a super, thank you for that. That's awesome. The water thing I've heard before. If you water the bees away from your house, they will go to the water source.
Yes. And that's what I plan on doing. We have a goldfish pond down there, which is fine. You can go down there. That's fine. They attract butterflies and dragonflies. So I'm all about that. But I'm going to put that stuff way out by the greenhouse. Just go over there, boys. The water's over there.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Cara
Cheyenne,
James,
this has been amazing.
I
Thank
know.
you so much.
I love the laughter. I appreciate the conversation. And please come back with all your adventures. Friends, we will see you on the next episode, okay?
Thank you.
Bye, friends.